The city lights flickered above as people hurried past, not one stopping to notice the little girl shivering on the curb. Her hands were clasped around her stomach. Her lips whispered, "Please, just one bite." The bakery behind her smelled of fresh bread, but the world stayed blind. Just when she lowered her head in defeat, a stray German shepherd limped out of the alley, carrying something in his mouth. He dropped it gently in her lap. A piece of bread. In that frozen silence, two broken hearts found each other, and the miracle began. The snow fell softly over the dimly lit street as people hurried past, heads down, clutching warm drinks. But on the cold stone step outside a bakery, a little girl sat alone, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, her lips trembling with hunger. Her name was Lily, and she hadn't eaten in 2 days. Behind the glass, shelves overflowed with golden bread, yet no one noticed her. She whispered faintly, "Please, just a little food," but the world stayed silent. Then, from the white blur of snow, a shape emerged, a German shepherd, shivering yet determined. In his mouth was a half loaf of bread. He stopped before her, dropped it gently in her lap, and looked up with eyes that said everything. "You're not alone." Before that night, Lily's world had already fallen apart. She once had a small apartment, a warm bed, and a mother who sang her to sleep every night. But sickness took her mother away too soon, and after the funeral, no one came to help. Her father had vanished years before, a promise to be right back that was never kept. Now, Lily wandered the streets alone, carrying nothing but a torn coat and an old backpack filled with fading memories, a photo, a small doll, and a letter she couldn't bear to open. Each day was a battle. She searched trash bins behind restaurants, hoping for crumbs, but was often chased away. Some people looked at her with pity, others with annoyance, but none stopped day to night. She'd curl up near closed shops, whispering softly to herself, stories her mother once told her, so she wouldn't feel the cold. The wind bit through her thin sleeves, and hunger made her dizzy. Yet she still managed to smile at passing strangers, hoping someone might smile back. That's when she noticed him, the stray dog watching her from across the street. His fur was matted, his ribs showing, but his eyes were kind. He didn't bark. He just stared, as if he, too, recognized the same kind of loneliness. The next morning, Lily awoke to the crunch of snow and soft footsteps beside her. The same German shepherd stood there, watching her quietly. When she reached into her pocket and pulled out her last piece of bread, barely a crumb, she hesitated. "You're hungry too, huh?" she whispered, holding it out. But instead of taking it, the dog sniffed her hand and gently pushed the bread back toward her. Lily blinked in surprise. "You want me to eat it?" she murmured. The dog wagged his tail once, then sat down right beside her as if to say, "We'll face it together." From that day forward, they became inseparable. Lily named him Buddy. Every morning, he would disappear into the maze of streets and return hours later with something. Half a sandwich, a piece of fruit, or, once, an entire loaf of bread still wrapped in paper. She never knew how he found it, but he always shared it with her, watching to make sure she ate first at tea night. They'd huddle together near the bakery window, Buddy's warm fur shielding her from the biting wind. She'd whisper stories about her mom, and though he couldn't speak, he'd rest his head on her lap and listen. For the first time in months, Lily didn't feel invisible anymore. She had found her family, in a stray dog with a brave heart. The storm hit harder that night. The snow came down thick and fast, blanketing the streets in silence. Lily sat shivering against the bakery wall, clutching Buddy's fur for warmth. Her lips were pale, her eyes heavy. She hadn't eaten all day. Buddy whimpered, licking her hand, but she barely moved. Then, suddenly, her body went limp. Panic filled Buddy's eyes. He nudged her shoulder, barked, and pawed at her coat, but she didn't respond. The dog began to whine, pacing in circles. Then, with a desperate growl, he bolted into the storm. Moments later, Buddy burst through the bakery door, startling the baker inside. "Hey, get out of here," the man shouted, waving his arms. But Buddy barked frantically, grabbing a loaf of bread from the counter and running back outside. The baker hesitated. Something about that look in the dog's eyes made him follow. Through the snow, he saw Buddy digging at a pile near the wall, and then he saw her. A little girl, unconscious and freezing. The baker's breath caught. He dropped to his knees, scooped her up, and rushed inside. Buddy followed close behind, whining softly as the man wrapped her in blankets. When Lily finally stirred, her first sight was Buddy's tearful eyes and the warmth of a fire beside them. She was alive, because he refused to give up. When Lily woke up, the air smelled of fresh bread and warmth. She was lying on a small bed in the bakery's back room, wrapped in thick blankets. Beside her, Buddy slept soundly, his fur still damp from the snow. A kind-faced man sat nearby, holding a cup of tea. "You gave us quite a scare, little one," he said softly. "You were freezing out there." His name was Mr. Harris, the bakery owner. He explained how Buddy had burst into his shop, barking like he was begging for help, and how he followed him just in time. "That dog saved your life," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. Lily looked at Buddy, tears filling her eyes. "He's my best friend," she whispered. Over the next few days, Mr. Harris and his wife cared for them both. They gave Lily warm meals, clean clothes, and a small room above the bakery. Buddy quickly became everyone's favorite. Customers stopped just to pet him and bring treats. But the most beautiful change was in Lily. She smiled again. She laughed again. Every morning, she helped bake bread and fed Buddy first. The bakery soon had a new sign by the window: Buddy's Corner, free bread for the hungry. People began leaving donations. Inspired by the little girl and her dog who had saved each other for the first time in a long while, Lily felt something she thought she'd lost forever: home. Months passed, and life bloomed again for Lily and Buddy. The bakery became their haven, a place filled with warmth, laughter, and the smell of freshly baked bread. Customers came not just for the pastries, but for the story. The little girl who once sat starving outside now stood behind the counter, handing out bread to anyone who looked hungry. And beside her, always, was Buddy, tail wagging proudly, a bandana around his neck that read "Hero." One day, a local reporter stopped by after hearing whispers about the miracle dog. The story quickly spread, from the small town to the state, then across the world. Photos of Lily hugging Buddy went viral, touching millions. People from around the globe sent letters, donations, and messages of love. Some wrote, "This reminded me to be kind again." Others said, "That dog saved more than one life." When asked what she wanted to say to everyone, Lily smiled shyly and looked at Buddy. "I didn't save him," she said softly. "He saved me and taught me what love really means." The bakery continued to give free bread to those in need, and Buddy became a symbol of compassion in the community. Children would stop by just to pet him, and Lily would tell them, "Kindness is the strongest thing in the world." As the sun set behind the bakery one evening, Lily sat beside Buddy, whispering, "We made it, didn't we?" He rested his head in her lap, eyes shining. "Sometimes," the narrator concluded, "angels don't have wings. Sometimes they walk on four paws and find us when we've lost hope."